A chained German shepherd mother, starving, exhausted, desperate. Her puppies cry beside her, too weak to stand. She can't reach them. She can't help them. Days pass. No food, no water. And then, something happens. Something no one saw coming. What unfolded next would shock an entire village and leave everyone asking, how far can a mother go to save her babies? Before we begin, make sure to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and turn on notifications. Because this is not just a story about survival, it's about sacrifice, injustice, and the moment when silence is finally broken. At the edge of a forgotten farm, in the dry outskirts of Seville, stood a collapsed wooden shed, half covered in thorn bushes and broken fencing. No one went near it anymore. The old owner had died years ago, and his son only visited to dump old equipment or throw out trash. It was a place of silence, except for one sound that had started to haunt the nearby villagers. Crying. Not human, but sharp, high-pitched whimpers. Desperate, faint, coming from somewhere behind the locked gate. Inside the shed, tied to a rusted iron hook in the wall, was a German shepherd. Her name had once been Loba, though she hadn't heard it in weeks. Her body was thin, ribs protruding, eyes sunken, fur caked with mud and old blood. Around her neck was a thick chain, only 1 meter long, just enough to sit, lie down, and barely turn her head. Next to her, huddled in a nest of damp straw, were 3 tiny puppies. Newborns. Blind, their ears still closed. They squirmed and cried, searching for warmth, for milk. Loba leaned toward them, but the chain stopped her just short of reaching the weakest one. She whined, pulling hard. The metal dug deeper into her neck. She had no strength left. She hadn't eaten in 3 days. The owner's son had thrown a frozen chicken bone into the corner once. She couldn't reach it. Water had spilled from a cracked bucket. The only thing keeping her alive was instinct, and the unbearable sound of her puppies begging to be fed. She twisted her body sideways, lying on her side, stretching her hind legs toward the nest. One pup latched, then the second. The third was still too far. Loba cried. She dragged her chain again. And then the unexpected happened. From behind the shed, footsteps, fast, uneven. Then a small thud, something falling. A boy, barely 11, scraped knees, torn shirt. His name was Mateo, and he had snuck onto the property looking for old bottles to recycle for coins. He didn't expect to hear crying. He moved slowly toward the sound, pushing aside weeds. When he reached the shed and peeked through the broken slats, he froze. He didn't understand what he was seeing at first. The chained dog, the starving puppies, the smell, rot, feces, blood, decay. "Madre mia," he whispered. Loba saw him. Her body tensed, but she didn't bark. She didn't growl. She just stared, exhausted. Her eyes begged. Mateo stepped closer. "It's okay," he said, voice shaking. "I won't hurt you." He reached through the gap and touched the smallest puppy. It was ice cold. He shoved open the rotted shed door, ignoring the burst of flies and the swarm of smell. Loba whimpered. And then, something inside Mateo changed. He took off his shirt, gently placed the cold puppy against his chest, looked around. No food, no water, just a pile of rags and a dog ready to die for her babies. "I'll come back," he whispered. "I swear." And he ran, not just to save the puppies, but because, for the first time in his life, he knew what he had to do. Mateo ran the entire way home. His chest burned. His feet were blistered from thin sneakers. The puppy, still pressed against his bare chest, didn't move. Just a faint warmth, barely noticeable. But it was breathing. At the edge of the small village, he burst through the door of the tiny house he shared with his grandmother. She was in the kitchen, stirring a pot of soup, her back turned. "Abuela!" he shouted. "I need help!" She turned, startled, her wrinkled hands still holding the spoon. Then she saw the trembling bundle in his arms. Her face softened, but only for a moment. "What is that, Mateo?" "Shepherd puppy. There's a mother. 2 more. They're dying." "Donde?" "The old Carvajal farm." Her eyes went cold. "No." "Abuela, that place is not ours to step into. The sun is dangerous. The Guardia Civil won't interfere. You want trouble? That's how trouble finds you." Mateo stared at her, heart racing. "But they'll die." She looked at him, then at the puppy, then back at the soup. "Put it by the fire." He did, wrapped it in a towel. She brought him warm milk in a bottle cap. Mateo placed a drop on the puppy's lips. It didn't suck, just let the drop fall down its tiny chin. But it blinked once. It was alive. That night, Mateo didn't sleep. He sat by the fire, watching the pup breathe. The next morning he gathered a backpack, bread soaked in broth, a plastic water bottle, and an old towel. His abuela said nothing, just handed him the leftover soup without a word. Back at the shed, Loba lifted her head as he approached. Her body trembled, but her eyes were fixed on the towel in his arms. "Your baby's alive," he whispered, placing the pup back beside her. She licked its face, slowly, as if afraid it might vanish. He poured water into a rusty pan. She drank it all in seconds. Then the bread. He broke it into pieces, soaked it in broth, and laid it near her snout. She didn't chew, just swallowed. He sat with them for hours, brushing the flies away, replacing the wet straw with dry grass he collected nearby. Every few minutes, he checked their breathing. When he stood to leave, Loba whined. "I'll be back," he promised. "I'm not going to let anyone forget you." That evening, he tried to tell the village vet. The man just frowned. "You're a child, Mateo." "But they're dying." "Call the Guardia." "They won't come." "I'm sorry." He tried the church, the grocer, the neighbor who fed strays. All shook their heads. "No one touches that man's land," someone muttered. "He has guns. Let it be." But Mateo couldn't. He knew what he'd seen. A mother chained, 3 souls fading, and a silence no one was willing to break. So he made a decision. If no one else would fight for them, he would. The next morning, Mateo returned to the shed before sunrise. The cold bit through his jacket, but he didn't care. He moved quietly through the frost-covered weeds, careful not to leave tracks that might alert the landowner. His heart pounded with every step. He carried a small handsaw and a plan. Loba lifted her head as he entered. Her eyes had changed. There was something in them now, a flicker. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was just hunger. But she didn't flinch as he approached the chain. "I'm going to free you," he whispered, kneeling. The chain was rusted deep into the iron loop embedded in the wall. Mateo gritted his teeth, gripping the saw with both hands, and started to cut. It wasn't easy. Minutes turned into an hour. His hands blistered. The saw teeth screamed against metal. Loba lay still, occasionally licking her pups. One of them squeaked weakly. The smallest, the one Mateo had taken home, was stronger now. Its eyes were beginning to open. Finally, with a loud snap, the bolt cracked. The chain came loose. Loba didn't move at first. She just stared at Mateo, as if asking, "What now?" He gently guided her toward the entrance. She limped. Her body was skeletal. But she followed. He didn't take them far, just to the edge of the woods, where he had prepared a small shelter of branches and an old plastic tarp. A better place. Hidden. Dry. It wasn't perfect, but it was freedom. He fed her, laid the puppies close to her belly, and waited. Then he pulled out his phone. He didn't have internet at home, but the bakery in town had free Wi-Fi. He'd seen how people online saved animals, shared stories, raised money. He opened the camera and pressed record. He filmed Loba, her ribs, her chain, the puppies crying, barely alive. Then he looked into the lens and said, "My name is Mateo. I'm 11. I found this mother and her babies tied up and starving. Nobody helps. But if you're seeing this, maybe you can." He uploaded it at the bakery, using a fake name. He didn't want his abuela to know yet. He titled it, "Chained Shepherd Mom and Her Dying Puppies. Please don't look away." He left it there, not knowing if anyone would see it. But someone did. By evening, the video had 3,000 views. By morning, 40,000. By the end of the week, it would cross 1,000,000. People were angry. People were crying. And people were asking one question. Who did this? The man who owned the property saw the video too, and for the first time in years, he realized he wasn't invisible anymore. 3 days after the video went online, everything changed. Mateo returned from school to find 2 men in suits standing outside his grandmother's house. One held a clipboard. The other wore a jacket with the logo of a local animal welfare foundation. His abuela was on the porch, arms crossed, fuming. "¿Qué hiciste, Mateo?" He froze. The man with the clipboard stepped forward. "You're the boy from the video?" He nodded. "I'm from Fundación Vida Animal, the shelter. Your video. It went viral. Over 2 million views. People are sending money, food, offers to adopt, and demanding action." Mateo blinked. "We want to help, but we need you to show us where they are." His abuela interrupted. "You're not taking him anywhere. He's a child." The man turned to her gently. "Ma'am, your grandson may have saved 4 lives." She fell silent. Mateo looked up. "They're okay, but the mother is weak. Take us." He led them back through the woods, along the hidden path. The small shelter still stood beneath the tarp. Inside, Loba lay curled around her pups. Her fur was cleaner now, the light in her eyes brighter. The rescuers knelt in silence. One of them whispered, "Dios mío." They began checking the puppies, weighing them, taking notes, injecting medicine gently beneath the skin. Loba didn't flinch. Mateo stayed by her side, one hand on her paw. Then someone shouted from the road, "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" They turned. A man in stained jeans and a baseball cap stood by the fence. His face was red, furious. In his hand, a shotgun. The owner, Rafael Carvajal. He stomped toward them, shouting curses. "That's my land. That's my dog." The rescuer stepped forward. "Sir, we have video proof." "You've got nothing!" He raised the gun. Mateo stood in front of Loba. The man froze. That image, an 11-year-old boy shielding a starving dog with his own body, was captured by one of the workers, posted that night. By morning, it was on every major news outlet in Spain. A child facing a gun to protect a chained mother and her puppies. The police acted fast. Rafael Carvajal was arrested, charged with animal cruelty, abuse, and illegal firearm possession. The rescue was no longer just local, it was national. And Mateo? He became the face of something bigger. He didn't want fame. He only wanted the chain to be gone. But now, the whole country knew his name. And the shepherd family he saved? They were no longer alone. Loba collapsed the day before the court hearing. Mateo had been visiting her daily at the shelter, helping clean her kennel, feeding the puppies, now growing stronger and more playful by the hour. But Loba, she was fading. At first, they thought it was exhaustion. Then the blood tests came. Severe infection, malnutrition, a damaged liver. Days tied in filth, dehydration, and giving everything to her puppies had taken a deeper toll than anyone expected. Mateo stood outside the glass window as the vet staff rushed around her. She lay still on the exam table, breathing shallowly, her eyes flickering open only when someone touched her head. "She's not giving up," the vet said gently, "but her body is tired." Mateo whispered through the glass, "You can't leave them now. You did everything for them. Let us fight for you now." The court hearing was scheduled the next morning. Animal welfare advocates, journalists, even politicians were attending. The image of Mateo standing in front of the gun had become symbolic, used on posters, websites, even murals in the city. Donations kept pouring in. But none of that mattered if Loba didn't make it. At the hearing, Rafael Carvajal sat with his head down, face expressionless. His defense was weak. He claimed he didn't know the dog was pregnant, that he forgot to check on her, that the boy made it all worse by trespassing. The judge wasn't impressed. And when the prosecution presented the video, the medical reports, and the moment where Mateo stood between the gun and the dog, the courtroom fell silent. But it was Mateo's statement that sealed the day. He stood, trembling slightly, and faced the judge. She didn't bark, not once. Even when she was starving, dying, she just watched. I think she was waiting for someone to come, but no one did. So I did. And I'd do it again. The judge's voice cracked slightly as she read the ruling. The court recognizes this as a case of aggravated animal cruelty. The defendant is sentenced to prison and permanent loss of animal ownership rights. The crowd erupted. Reporters scrambled. But Mateo didn't smile. He ran. Out of the courtroom, down the street, back to the shelter, straight to Loba's kennel. She was there, eyes open, breathing. One of the puppies, the smallest, was curled against her neck. She lifted her head, barely, licked Mateo's hand. He collapsed beside her in tears. "You did it," he whispered. "You held on. Just long enough." That night, the puppies slept in a soft pile, warm and safe. And Loba, the chained mother who had no voice, finally rested. Free. The first time Loba wagged her tail, it was barely a twitch. It happened in the recovery room 2 weeks after the trial. Mateo had just walked in, carrying a new blanket embroidered with her name. She lifted her head when she saw him and gave one slow, unsure thump of her tail against the floor. The vet, standing nearby, smiled. "That's the first time," she whispered. Mateo dropped to his knees. "You remember me," he said softly. "You know you're safe now." Loba still moved slowly, carefully. Her body was thin, her steps unsteady, but her eyes were brighter, her coat was shinier, and her puppies, now named Sol, Luna, and Peque, were no longer fragile squeaks, but curious explorers. They had begun biting his shoelaces, tumbling over each other in play. Every time they cried, Loba watched carefully. But she no longer strained to reach them, because now nothing was holding her back. The chain was gone. Forever. And yet, Mateo felt something tightening in his chest. The shelter director had been kind, supportive, but they made it clear Loba and the pups would eventually need to be adopted. They couldn't stay in the clinic forever. Mateo went home heavy that night. He told his abuela. She listened quietly. "You love them," she said. He nodded. "Then we'll make room." He looked up, stunned. "You mean—" "Not all of them," she added, smiling. "We're not building a zoo, but maybe 1 or 2. He ran to hug her. The next morning, at the shelter, the director called him aside. "There's someone here to meet you," she said. A woman in a gray coat waited at the front desk, holding a box of dog treats. She introduced herself as Isabel, a woman who had watched the viral video and followed Loba's story. "I don't want a puppy," she said. "I want her, the mother, the one who survived." Mateo hesitated. "She's not ready," he said. "I don't need ready. I need real." She explained how she had lost her husband 2 years ago, how she hadn't smiled in months, until she saw a dog who didn't bark, didn't break, didn't stop loving. Mateo brought her into the kennel. Loba looked up, studied the woman. Her tail moved once, then again. Mateo knelt beside her. "It's your choice," he whispered. "But I'll only let you go if you're really ready." Loba stood, walked to Isabel, and pressed her head into the woman's chest. They both cried. And Mateo knew this wasn't losing. This was giving. Giving Loba the home she always deserved. He kissed her forehead one last time. "Good girl," he said. You were never broken, just waiting to be seen. Months passed. The viral headlines faded. The reporters stopped calling. The world moved on. But for Mateo, everything had changed. At home, 2 puppies now ruled the backyard. Luna, always curious and quick to bark at butterflies, and Peke, clumsy and cuddly, more interested in Mateo's shoelaces than anything else. His grandmother, once strict and distant, now kept a stash of dog treats under the sink and called them her little soldiers. Every morning before school, Mateo fed them. Every afternoon, he walked them through the village. People smiled now when they saw him. Some waved. Others stopped to say how brave he was. But Mateo didn't feel like a hero. He just felt like someone who had done what needed to be done. Loba now lived with Isabel, in a small house near the orange groves. She had gained weight. Her coat had grown thick and golden. And for the first time in her life, she slept inside, on a real bed, next to someone who whispered, "You're safe," every single night. Mateo visited every week. Loba always met him at the gate, tail wagging, eyes soft, head pressed into his chest like she never forgot. And she hadn't. None of them had. One warm Saturday in early spring, the shelter held a celebration. They called it Dia de los que no se rinden, the day of those who don't give up. Dozens of rescue animals were there, families, children, volunteers. But at the center of it all was Loba. Mateo was asked to speak. He stood nervously on the small wooden stage. Luna and Peke curled at his feet and looked at the crowd. "I didn't mean to be brave," he said. "I just couldn't walk away." He paused, voice trembling. She never barked, not once. But I heard her. I think a mother doesn't need to make noise to scream for help. And now, she doesn't have to scream anymore. Applause. Tears. Loba barked, just once, soft and proud, from Isabel's side. Mateo smiled. Later that night, as he sat on the porch, Luna asleep on his lap, Peke snoring beside his grandmother's feet, he looked up at the stars. The world could be cruel, but it could also heal. And sometimes it only takes one voice or one boy to break a chain. If this story touched your heart, if you believe no soul should suffer in silence, if you know that love, real love, can break any chain, subscribe to the channel, give this video a thumbs up, and share it with someone who needs to believe in second chances. Because heroes come in all sizes, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply not walk away.